I used to think that my marriage with Jenna was one of those fairy tales you hear about. We were the couple everyone else envied, 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs, and a love that seemed unshakable. At least that's what I thought. As the years rolled on, though, things started to feel off. It wasn't like a light switch that just flipped. It was more subtle, like the slow unraveling of a loosely knitted sweater. I remember the first strange sign. She started calling me Bubba. It was a nickname I never gave her. In fact, I'd never even heard it before. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just a quirky new term of endearment, but deep down it felt strange. Who else was calling her that? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it gnawed at me. As weeks turned into months, Jenna's behavior changed. She became distant, often glued to her phone, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being sidelined in my own life. She claimed she was just busy with work, but I knew her job as an event planner didn't require half the late nights she was putting in. I tried to be supportive, but her constant excuses started to feel like walls being built between us. I felt like I was losing my best friend, and the growing silence was deafening. Then came the day everything shifted. I had just come home early from work, a rare treat for me, hoping to surprise her with dinner. Instead, I was the one surprised. The house was quiet, too quiet. As I walked toward our bedroom, I noticed her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. I shouldn't have. The screen lit up with a text that sent my heart racing. "Can't wait to see you tonight, my love." I don't remember much after that. My mind was a whirlwind of disbelief and anger. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I wanted to throw the phone aside, but I couldn't. I was stuck, frozen in my own betrayal. It didn't make sense. How could she do this to me, to us? When Jenna walked through the door, her smile vanished the moment she saw the look on my face. I confronted her, and let me tell you, it was like opening a floodgate. I threw her phone on the table and demanded an explanation. The look of shock quickly turned into defiance, and she started with the usual excuses. "It's not what you think," she claimed, but I wasn't buying it. She spun a web of lies, claiming it was some harmless fling, just a friend who had been there for her during tough times. She was good at lying, but I could see through her facade. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and betrayal, all crashing over me like a wave. I had trusted her, shared my life with her, and she had chosen to betray me with some random guy. My heart ached, and I felt like I was living in a nightmare. As she continued to babble about how she was confused and needed time, I found myself retreating into my own thoughts, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions pulling me in every direction. How could I ever look at her the same way again? The person I thought I knew, the person I loved, was suddenly an unrecognizable figure, shrouded in lies and deceit. I knew I had a decision to make. Should I fight for what we had or walk away from the woman who had shattered my trust? I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders as I considered my next steps. I was tired of being blindsided, tired of feeling like a fool. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about our family, our kids, and the life we had built together. The emotional roller coaster I was on felt endless. In those moments, my mind raced with thoughts of what could have been, and all I wanted was clarity. I needed to decide how to move forward in a world where my trust had been broken. What would I choose? The days that followed the confrontation were a blur. I walked around in a daze, navigating the house like a ghost in my own life. Jenna acted as if everything was fine, almost like she thought we could just pretend that moment never happened. But it had happened, and the wounds were fresh. Every time I passed her, I felt a mix of rage and sorrow. Her presence was a constant reminder of the betrayal, and I found myself avoiding her as much as I could. I didn't want to talk to her, didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. I wanted to scream, to throw things, maybe even shatter the illusion of our perfect life. Instead, I opted for silence, and that silence echoed through our home. Then, one afternoon, I decided to go through her belongings. It felt wrong, almost like I was violating some invisible code, but I was desperate for answers. I started with her phone again, but it was locked tighter than a vault. She had changed her passcode right after I confronted her, which only heightened my suspicion. So I moved to her purse, rifling through the contents with a mix of fear and determination. That's when I stumbled upon it, a small, crumpled piece of paper tucked away at the bottom, barely noticeable. I pulled it out and unfolded it, my heart racing. It was a receipt from a hotel, dated just a few days before our confrontation. The sight of it made my stomach churn. The name on the receipt wasn't familiar, but it didn't matter. The realization hit me like a brick wall. She had been lying, and she had been doing it for a while now. I was seething. My hands shook as I put the receipt back in her purse and walked away, trying to catch my breath. The realization that the affair had been ongoing, that it wasn't just a one-time mistake, felt like a punch to the gut. Every moment we had shared together, every laugh, every intimate conversation suddenly felt tainted. I was living a lie. That evening, Jenna tried to engage me in conversation, asking about my day. I could barely look at her, let alone respond. I felt like a volcano ready to erupt, all that pent-up anger bubbling under the surface. When she pressed for answers, I snapped. "How can you act like nothing's wrong?" I spat, my voice rising. "I found the hotel receipt, Jenna. You think I can just ignore that?" Her face turned pale, and for the first time I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes, but rather than owning up to it, she deflected. "You're being irrational. That was for a work retreat," she exclaimed, her voice high-pitched and panicked. Work retreat. I couldn't believe how ridiculous her lies had become. "You expect me to believe that? Why would you need a hotel for a work retreat? You could have just done that at the office." I was furious. I wanted to shout, to channel every ounce of hurt into words that would cut her deeply, but I held back. I took a deep breath instead, trying to maintain some semblance of control. She continued to argue, insisting that I was overreacting, and for a moment I started to doubt myself. Was I being irrational? I couldn't shake the thoughts that flooded my mind. What if I was just imagining things? But the evidence was right there in front of me, stark and undeniable. My heart told me the truth even when my mind wavered. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My thoughts were a jumble of anger and heartbreak, spiraling into dark pits of despair. I thought about our kids, how their lives would change if I kicked her out. I thought about the house, the bills, the life we had built together. It all felt insurmountable, but a part of me also felt a flicker of hope. I remembered the love we once shared, the laughter that filled our home, the dreams we had built for our future. Was it worth fighting for? Or had Jenna's betrayal irreparably damaged what we had? I didn't know what the right choice was. I felt trapped between the love I used to know and the betrayal that loomed over me. The only thing that was clear was that I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I needed to confront her with the truth, to let her know that I wasn't going to stand by and be a fool. Somewhere in my gut, I felt the anger beginning to morph into a plan. I wouldn't just accept the lies anymore. No, if she thought she could play me for a fool, she had another thing coming. It was time to take control of my own life, to decide what came next. I wouldn't go quietly into the night. I would make sure she understood just how serious this all was. The game was on, and I was ready to play. The next day, I woke up with a sense of determination that I hadn't felt in a long time. I was done being a passive participant in my own life. I was going to confront Jenna with the truth that I had pieced together, armed with the knowledge of her deceit. I didn't want to scream or yell. I wanted to be calm, collected, and methodical. I needed her to understand the gravity of what she had done, and I needed to make her realize that I wouldn't just roll over and accept this betrayal. After the kids left for school, I sat down at the kitchen table, my heart racing as I waited for Jenna to come down from our bedroom. I could hear her moving around, and for a moment, the anticipation made my stomach churn. It felt like preparing for a battle, where I was the soldier ready to face the enemy. The house was too quiet, and the tension in the air was nearly palpable. When she finally walked into the kitchen, her hair was tousled, and she wore that same carefree smile that had become such a facade. "Good morning, Bubba," she chirped, but the term of endearment felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I didn't respond. I simply gestured for her to sit down. The look on her face shifted from cheerful to cautious as she took the seat across from me. "What's going on?" she asked, eyeing me warily. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. "Jenna, we need to talk," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found your hotel receipt. Don't try to lie to me about it again." The color drained from her face, and for a split second I saw the mask drop. "That's not," she started, but I raised my hand to cut her off. "I don't want to hear your excuses anymore," I said firmly. "The truth is, your actions speak louder than your words. I know you've been having an affair." The silence that followed was deafening. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for a way out, but she was trapped by the evidence of her own making. I could see her mind racing as she struggled to concoct another lie, but I wasn't giving her the opportunity this time. "I want to know who it is," I pressed, feeling the anger bubbling to the surface. "Who? This guy that you've been seeing, do I know him?" She opened her mouth to respond, but the words got stuck in her throat. I could see the panic settling in. It's complicated," she finally stammered. "Complicated? You mean you're not just cheating on your husband, but you're also too cowardly to admit who you're sneaking around with?" I shot back, feeling the heat rise in my chest. She recoiled, and for the first time I felt a flicker of satisfaction. I didn't want to hurt her, but the realization that she was still trying to manipulate the truth made my blood boil. "It doesn't matter who it is," she said defiantly, her voice trembling just slightly. "You wouldn't understand." I leaned forward, my gaze piercing into her. "Try me. I deserve to know who has been taking you away from me, who has been whispering sweet nothings in your ear while you were lying in bed beside me." Jenna looked down, avoiding my gaze as the silence stretched between us. I could see the guilt etched across her face, but she wouldn't admit it. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms defensively. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." "Nothing," I repeated incredulously. "You think cheating on your husband is nothing. You think lying to me every single day is nothing." She opened her mouth to respond, but then closed it again, as if she didn't know how to defend the indefensible. I could see the conflict on her face. She wanted to justify her actions, but deep down, I think she knew how wrong she was. "Jenna, I want you to think about our kids," I continued, my voice softer now. "What kind of example are you setting for them? You're teaching them that it's okay to lie, to deceive the person you love. You're breaking this family apart, and for what? A fling." Her defiance wavered for a moment, and I could see the tears pooling in her eyes. But instead of breaking down, she snapped back into her defensive mode. "You don't know what I've been going through. You don't know how lonely I felt." Lonely. I felt a surge of indignation. "You think I didn't feel lonely too? We were supposed to be in this together, but instead you chose to run off with someone else." As we continued to argue back and forth, I realized that this confrontation wasn't just about revealing the affair. It was about peeling back the layers of betrayal and hurt that had been festering for too long. I didn't just want answers. I wanted to reclaim my sense of self, to put my foot down and demand respect and honesty in our relationship. Despite her insistence on deflecting blame, I knew this confrontation was pivotal. I could see the cracks beginning to show in her armor, a realization that I was no longer the passive husband she could manipulate. I was standing my ground, and the tide was beginning to turn. Finally, I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "Look, I don't want this to be the end of us, but we need to have honesty, Jenna. If you want to work through this, you need to come clean. I can't fight a battle if I don't know who the enemy is." Her expression shifted, and for a moment I thought I could see the glimmer of honesty returning to her eyes. But would she take the opportunity? Would she choose to fight for our marriage, or would she continue down the path of deceit? I didn't know what would happen next, but I was ready for whatever came my way. The silence that followed my ultimatum stretched on like a taut string, ready to snap at any moment. Jenna's eyes flickered with uncertainty as she weighed her options. I held my breath, waiting for her to choose between honesty or betrayal. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. It's someone from work." The admission hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. "His name is Mark. We just clicked, you know. He made me feel alive again." A sharp pain pierced my chest with those words. I swallowed hard, trying to contain the whirlwind of emotions that threatened to consume me. "So this isn't just some fling. You actually had feelings for him." She nodded, her lips pressing together in a thin line. "I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did. We were working late on a project, and one thing led to another. I didn't mean for it to get this far." My mind reeled. "Jenna, you think that makes it better? You think that justifies lying to me for months?" I struggled to keep my voice steady, feeling anger and heartbreak collide within me. I didn't want to hurt you, she shot back, her own emotions bubbling to the surface now. I thought I could end it, but every time I tried, I couldn't. It was like I was addicted. Addicted to lying, to cheating. Is that what you mean? I felt the words spill out like poison. You think that's an excuse? Your actions have consequences. I watched as she shifted in her seat, tears brimming in her eyes. For the first time, I saw her vulnerability laid bare. Maybe the walls she had built were beginning to crumble, but I didn't know if it was too late to salvage anything from the wreckage. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cracking. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did. I messed up, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't want to lose you. That statement hit me like a slap in the face. But you've already lost me, Jenna. You chose to betray my trust. You chose to put someone else before our family. I can't just forget that. I could see the reality of her actions sinking in and the weight of our conversation pressed down on both of us. The truth was out there now, raw and painful, and there was no going back to the blissful ignorance we once had. As she sobbed, I felt an unexpected pang of empathy. I had spent so long suppressing my own emotions that I hadn't considered how she might feel too, now that the truth was out. But even with that understanding, I struggled to reconcile the love I once had for her with the hurt she had caused. I need time, I finally said, my voice hoarse. I can't just snap my fingers and forget everything that's happened. I understand, she replied, her voice still shaky. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll step back from Mark. I'll go to counseling, whatever you want. The thought of counseling felt like a double-edged sword. Part of me wanted to try to rebuild what we had, but another part screamed at me that I should walk away and never look back. I felt trapped between the love I had for her and the betrayal that loomed like a dark cloud. I don't know if that's enough, I admitted, feeling the weight of the moment pressing in on me. You shattered my trust, and trust is hard to rebuild. I don't want to be stuck in a cycle of pain. Jenna looked at me with desperation in her eyes, the sincerity of her plea palpable. I'll prove it to you. I swear I will. Just give me a chance. Her words lingered in the air, and I could feel the conflict within myself escalating. Could I trust her again? Did she even deserve that chance? As I wrestled with those questions, my phone buzzed on the table, breaking the tension in the room. I glanced at the screen and felt a knot tighten in my stomach. It was a text from my sister, asking how I was holding up. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to confide in her, but I knew that if I opened that door, there would be no closing it. I was still trying to process everything myself. I didn't want to spread the pain any further, but then I realized maybe this was exactly what I needed. I needed support from someone who loved me unconditionally, someone who could help me navigate this storm. I typed out a quick reply, telling my sister I was struggling but would talk later, then put my phone down. Jenna was watching me intently, her expression a mix of hope and fear. Are you going to leave me? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, Jenna, I replied honestly. I really don't. I can't just pretend everything is fine. I need you to understand that. I do. I swear I'll do better. I'll fight for us. And just like that, I saw a flicker of the woman I fell in love with, someone fierce, determined, and capable of growth. Still, I wasn't ready to jump back and head first. I had to approach this carefully. I think we both need some space to think, I said, feeling like I was treading on fragile ground. I need to figure out what I want, and you need to figure out what you want, too. She nodded quietly, as if finally understanding the gravity of the situation. I'll respect that. I hope we can find our way back to each other. Her words hung in the air as I rose from the table, the weight of uncertainty settling in my chest. I didn't have all the answers, and I wouldn't pretend to. But as I stepped away, I felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, we could navigate this together. Would it be easy? No. But it was a start, and sometimes a start was all you needed. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was willing to face it if it meant finding clarity in the chaos. The next few weeks were a blur of emotions, a chaotic mix of confrontation, reflection, and strained interactions. Jenna and I established a routine. We were cohabiting in the same house but living in separate worlds. The kids were oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface, and I was determined to keep it that way for their sake. I didn't want them to feel the weight of our issues. They deserved a semblance of normalcy in their lives. During the day, Jenna was on her best behavior, constantly trying to prove herself. She took the kids out on weekend outings, organized family dinners, and even made an effort to connect with me. We would share short conversations, navigating the minefield of our relationship with tentative steps. But the underlying tension was palpable, and I could not shake the feeling that things were still far from okay. I spent countless hours deep in thought trying to figure out what I wanted. Did I want to forgive her? Did I want to rebuild our marriage or cut my losses and move on? It was exhausting. I confided in my sister, who listened patiently as I poured out my feelings. She urged me to prioritize my mental well-being and to not rush into any decisions. Take your time, she advised. You deserve to be happy. But despite that advice, I felt the pressure of time looming over me. The way Jenna tried to win my affection back started to feel suffocating. Her constant apologies were like a broken record. I understood that she was trying, but it also made me realize how deeply the trust had been shattered. The love we had was still there, but it was now laced with doubt and betrayal. It wasn't until a fateful evening that the tension reached a boiling point. I had just come home from work, my mind still swirling with unresolved feelings. As I entered the house, I noticed Jenna sitting at the kitchen table, her phone in hand. The sight sparked a flicker of unease in my gut, but I pushed it away. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, trying for that cheerful tone again. "Long," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "I'm just trying to figure everything out." "Me too," she said softly, her eyes dropping to the table. "I want to talk about us, about what we can do moving forward." Just as I was about to respond, her phone buzzed again and my heart raced. I didn't mean to look, but the screen lit up with a familiar name, Mark. I froze, anger and hurt flooding my system all over again. I could feel my pulse quicken as I tried to keep my expression neutral. "Is that him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jenna's head snapped up, eyes wide. "What? No, it's just a work text," she stammered, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. I couldn't hold back my frustration. "Really? Because it looks like the guy you were having an affair with is still a part of your life." "Stop, you're overreacting," she shot back, but the defensive tone only fueled my anger. "Overreacting? You're still in contact with him, after everything." My voice rose, each word laced with disbelief and hurt. "You expect me to believe that you just want to be friends? You think I'm that naive?" The air in the room grew thick with tension, and I could see her grasping for words, struggling to find an explanation that would appease me. But I had reached my limit. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, and this conversation could either pull me back or push me over. "Do you even care how much this hurts me?" I demanded, my voice trembling with emotion. "How can you claim to want to fix our marriage while keeping him in your life?" Jenna's expression shifted from defensive to remorseful, and for a moment I thought I could see sincerity in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you, I swear. I thought I could handle it. I thought—" "You thought what?" I interrupted, unable to mask the frustration in my tone. "You thought it was okay to maintain a relationship with the guy who broke our trust. You're still not understanding the gravity of this." Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized the depth of her mistake. "I thought I could keep him at a distance, but I was wrong. I see that now." "Do you?" I challenged, feeling a wave of emotion wash over me. "Because it doesn't seem like you're taking this seriously. You're still hiding things from me." In that moment, I felt a surge of clarity. I couldn't keep living like this, teetering on the brink of despair, constantly questioning her honesty. I needed to take a stand, to put my foot down once and for all. "Maybe it's time for you to decide if you want to be with him or with me. I can't be in limbo while you try to navigate this." Her expression shifted, and I could see the realization dawning on her. "I don't want him, I want you," she declared, her voice trembling. "But I know I've made a mess of things, and I need to prove that to you." My heart conflicted with emotions. I wanted to believe her, truly I did, but the scars ran deep. "Proving it means cutting him out of your life completely. No text messages, no calls, nothing. The choice is yours. If you want to work on us, then you need to make that decision." Jenna nodded slowly, her expression serious. "I'll do it, I promise. I'll block him and cut all ties. I want to show you that I can be the wife you deserve." As the gravity of the moment settled over us, I realized how pivotal this decision was. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. But if we were going to rebuild our marriage, it had to start with trust, trust that she was willing to fight for us. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a mix of anxiety and hope swirling within me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we were moving toward a resolution rather than merely circling the drain of our problems. What lay ahead was uncertain and scary, but maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The journey would be long, but I was willing to take that first step. The days that followed our confrontation felt like a delicate dance. Jenna kept her promise. She cut Mark out of her life entirely. I watched as she deleted his number, blocked him on social media, and even avoided places where they might cross paths. Each day that passed without incident felt like a small victory, a step toward rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. But the journey was far from smooth. While Jenna was working hard to prove herself, I was still grappling with the emotional fallout of betrayal. There were moments when I would see her smile, and for a fleeting second, I would be reminded of the woman I fell in love with. But then memories of her infidelity would come crashing back, dragging me down into a pit of doubt and insecurity. We decided to seek counseling, which was a major step for both of us. On our first visit, the therapist led us through a series of exercises aimed at improving communication. It was uncomfortable at times, peeling back layers of our relationship that had been buried under resentment. With every session, I found myself alternating between hope and frustration. I wanted to believe we could repair this, but every now and then the anger would flare up, and I'd feel like we were taking one step forward and two steps back. Jenna was committed, and that was evident. She stepped up her efforts, not just in therapy but also at home. She became more attentive to the kids, planning family activities that brought us all closer. I saw glimmers of the woman I had married, and it filled me with a sense of longing. But the road to healing was paved with discomfort. Every laugh we shared was tinged with the memory of her betrayal. One day, after a particularly heated therapy session, I was sitting on the porch with a glass of whiskey in hand, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. Jenna joined me, her expression somber. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. "Sure," I replied, my heart racing. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew we needed to have this conversation. "I've been thinking about everything," she began, her voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "About how I hurt you, how I lost sight of what was important. I'm really sorry for all of it." I nodded, trying to read her. "I know you're trying, Jenna, but it's hard for me to forget what happened. I keep replaying it in my mind." "I understand," she said, biting her lip. "And I don't want you to forget. I want you to remember so that we can learn from it. I don't want to go back to who I was." Her honesty, raw and unfiltered, hit me hard. I realized that while I was still grappling with my feelings, she was also on her journey of self-discovery. We were both learning, both trying to navigate through the wreckage. "I just don't know if I can trust you fully again," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's hard to open myself up when I'm still so hurt." "Then let's take it slow," she suggested, her eyes earnest. "I'm willing to put in the work. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. We can rebuild this at your pace." As I looked into her eyes, I saw sincerity and determination. The woman sitting before me was not the same person who had betrayed me. She was someone fighting to make amends and re-establish the connection we had lost. Gradually, as time passed, I began to let my guard down. There were still moments when the past crept in like an unwelcome shadow, but I learned to communicate these feelings instead of letting them fester inside. We both learned to embrace the discomfort of vulnerability and found a way to share our fears and doubts openly. Months later, during a family outing to the park, I watched Jenna interact with our kids, her laughter ringing out like music in the air. It struck me how different everything felt now. I had allowed space for healing, both for me and for her, and it was beginning to pay off. We were not the same couple we had been before, but maybe that was such a bad thing. After everything, I found myself reflecting on the lessons I had learned, the importance of communication, the necessity of trust, and the power of forgiveness. I understood that relationships could be messy and complicated, but they could also be resilient. As I sat on the grass, watching my kids chase each other with joy, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could make it through this after all. Maybe love could triumph over betrayal if both parties were willing to put in the effort. And so, I chose to embrace the uncertainty, to trust in the journey we were on. There would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them with my heart wide open. Life had thrown us a curveball, but together, we were learning to hit back.